So, in this podcast, I'm going to look at the personal barriers that's related to me, which have caused me problems in my friendships. Just a few thoughts. Well, first of all, why do I write? That's a very good question. And the answer is to clarify my thoughts. Although I acknowledge that, yeah, I, like every writer, would like to have an audience. Actually, the main reason I write for is for myself and not to please others. If others want to read what I write, then that's okay. But if not, it doesn't bother me. I am not a populist. One of my heroes, Christopher Hitchens, once said that writing was not a choice or a hobby for him. It was a necessity, like eating or sleeping. So, yes, I agree with Christopher Hitchens. It's not a good question to ask me, why do I write? It's like asking me, why do you eat? Of course, all friendships are different, so it's very difficult to make generalizations. These are just a few of my thoughts. But generalizations is what humans try to do. We look for patterns. Humans are a pattern seeking animal. So if I say that, for example, that women are less consistent than men, I don't mean that they are all inconsistent. There are many consistent women as well as inconsistent ones, but possibly fewer consistent women than men. It's just my opinion. I don't know the reasons. By the way, although I think that men may be more consistent, they often have consistently bad traits, not conducive to friendship. There's no point in writing if I don't make generalizations. Distractions. Now, everything and anything conspires to distract us from friendship. Here's a list of things that have distracted me from making friendships: family, career, hobbies, holidays, mobile phones, sport, computers, televisions, addictions, ignorance, my stupidity, laziness, and my apathy. These are just some, but they're no means all of the culprits. Other people have other distractions too. Religion can be a barrier, even though it claims to be exactly the opposite. The invisible God can be an obstacle to friendship. Religious fanatics can be fiercely loyal to someone they can't even see compared to their visible flawed friend here on earth. Should that friend try to compete for the time of the religious fanatic? I don't have close friendships with religious people because they have only one close friend, the one they cannot see. All other friends are simply competing for that time, and you can never compete. In the modern technological world, ChatGPT and social media can be barriers to friendship because they use up so much time. Even a person's social media style of messaging can be a barrier for me. ChatGPT can answer so many questions that I don't need to ask people questions anymore face to face, and vice versa. They don't need to ask me questions. So I have fewer opportunities to forge friendships. I have fewer language students because of ChatGPT and the other language apps. I expect people on social media to have conversations with me. I suppose I'm very traditional in this respect, but many people don't want to have conversations. They just have different communication styles and different expectations surrounding messages. Now, each of these topics could be the topic of an individual essay, but this is not the time or the place for the details. Suffice it to say that friendship is very fragile because sadly it is low on the agenda for most people. They are too busy with all these other things. If you read my memoirs, you will know that friendship has been a major focus in my life, with neighborhood friends as a child, school friends, university friends, work colleagues, my wife, my family. Even in retirement now, I am pursuing friendships vigorously. The degree of success has been very variable, of course. Many disappointments, but some noteworthy successes. I've certainly given it everything that I've got. It's difficult to know where to start with barriers, though. I think for the adults, the default position is not friendship, really, but apathy or conflict, even. There have been a few, but not many of the 80 friendships which have ended through disagreement and misunderstanding. There can be disagreements about politics or religion or family matters, but there are often complicating factors which all come down to a willingness or not to invest in the time, the energy necessary to sustain the friendship. I've decided to look at barriers to friendship, which are due to internal or personal factors related to myself in this podcast. And then in the next podcast, to barriers which are related to factors which are external to myself. So the internal factors connected to myself are as follows. First of all, personality. Personality has, of course, been a huge factor in forming my friendships. Um, for me, some people are open to forming friendships. Some people actively seek connections. Others do not. Without a doubt, the single most influential factor in my friendships has been my own personality. So I have to say a little bit about that here as it helps understand my friendships. So, starting again with a bit more about friendship. Some friendships are just transactional and based on need. I need something from you, advice, tuition, company. You may want advice, tuition, or be lonely and just want company. When the transaction is finished, the friendship dies. Sadly, these acquaintanceships, I call them acquaintanceships, for me have been short lived. I've had many of them, and but I don't usually seek such transactional acquaintanceships. I don't see them really as an end in themselves. Some people seem to think there must always be a utilitarian and materialistic transactional purpose for every human interaction. I don't agree with this. If I can use you or need something from you, I will be your friend and vice versa. If I can't use you or don't need you any longer, I'll ignore or forget you. For me, these are acquaintances and they are temporary. However, I do agree that some transactional acquaintanceships can lead to deeper and more satisfying close relationships. And I'll say a little about goat tracks. Goat tracks are habitual ways of thinking that are often no longer appropriate and difficult to change. They are like mountain goats who always tread the same path. I find I behave in the same way as I've done in the past when confronted by a challenge. It's sometimes difficult for me to change my thinking, but I'm always trying to create new goat tracks. To save time, I think I basically have a type A personality. Characteristics associated with a type A personality include achievement orientated, yes, Competitive, yes. Fast paced, yes, I'm always on the move. And impatient, for sure. I lack patience. I think I am sociable on a one to one basis, but I am basically a shy and reserved person who dislikes groups and gregariousness. And these, incidentally, are traits not necessarily suited to being a teacher, which I was for 50 years. I think the major reason for my endless and obsessive search for friendship and for people to feel sorry for or to rescue may possibly lie in my childhood. My childhood was unremarkable. Sorry for the disappointment. There are no traumatic events or harrowing scenarios to relate, and I was not dropped on my head by a carer. I was brought up in a comfortable middle class suburb of Belfast in Ireland, and I had a comfortable and unremarkable childhood in many ways. I became introverted after the age of about 10 and became shy and reserved. I don't really know why. In spite of my unremarkable and secure family life, I was a lonely child. And that is, I think, why I developed a very rich inner life full of conversations with myself, dreams, and fantasies. I started to write reflective stories in my early 20s. These goat tracks, or personality tracks, were established early in my life, and they may not have changed much. Some of them persist strongly even today. My inner life and fantasy life is still very powerful, especially in recent years as I have become less distracted by my family and my career. It's always dangerous to compare, but I think probably I have more friends than most people. Not all the friendships, though, have stood the test of time. Some have deteriorated in quality, and others have dissolved altogether. But many have also stood the test of time. I've put a lot of energy into my friendships. I've always sought friendship with enthusiasm, perhaps at times even with obsession. I was or am always excited by meeting new people. Friendship has had for me an almost mystical or spiritual quality at times. Like many teenagers, I often approached a new friend as the possible messiah who would solve all my problems. In retrospect, I think I have often had unrealistic expectations of friendship. I've tried to be sincere, possibly more sincere than most, but as a result, I can and have been sometimes intense, again to a fault. This has sometimes put pressure on the friendship, and the friendship has foundered. Because of my reserve, I became very frustrated as a young man, as women were put off by my sincerity and my intensity. I was not playful enough and did not flirt enough with them to have much success. The more frustrated I became with them, the more sincere and intense I became in order to impress them. And it was and still is a vicious circle. It's a goat track which has not been possible to remove entirely with the passage of time. Forced sincerity is not what women want, or men for that matter. People want a lighter touch. Humor is always the key. For decades, for most of my life in fact, I have been so caught up in my own idealism, trying to be sincere, that I have neglected the humor. In short, I've always taken myself too seriously. I've also noticed that some people actively dislike this sincerity, idealism, and my seriousness. Perhaps they see my sincerity as contrived and overdone, even false, which maybe it is to a certain extent, as I've just explained. So some people want to destroy that idealism. They see me as a target. I'm like a balloon that they want to prick with a pin just to see it explode. The result of all this is that I can be a little paranoid at times, which leads me to my short temper. And explode, I still do, and I did in the past. At a very early age, I developed a short temper. Maybe it was biology, I don't know why, but I suspect my brother had something to do with it. He provoked me incessantly. There were 2 marks on the dining room door of our house, where one day, at the age of about 10, on being provoked by him, I had removed my belt from my waist and pursued him from the kitchen at full speed into the dining room, thrashing my belt wildly at him. Fortunately for him, he was able to close the dining room door in time to shield himself from my flailing belt buckle. For decades, there were still 2 deep dents in that door. Mum was not impressed with either of us. She liked that door. This was another early established goat track, my short temper. I still find it a challenge to manage, but have successfully avoided the main triggers for this behavior now for some time. Families and me. Without a doubt, family friendships are, of course, very important, but they are more complicated in my opinion. Friendships formed in my own family have been highly influenced by the parent-child dynamic, which can be a barrier, and the dynamic with my partner and in the family which I grew up in as a child by sibling rivalry and the parent-child dynamic were both barriers. That is not a surprise. I could say a lot about this, but I won't for many reasons, including privacy and confidentiality, of course. Indeed, in fact, I think that every family is different, and so little is to be learned by anyone else studying the details of my friendships within my family. However, that is not to diminish the importance of family friendships for me. Of course, they have been and are very important in my life. They are possibly more important than friendships forged with friends outside the family. I have to say that it seems to me that in particular, the mother-child friendship is a particularly strong bond, perhaps the strongest bond of all on earth. Perhaps biology is involved in some of these connections. Now let's look at the need for identity and feedback from friends and unrealistic expectations. Well, one reason I've sought friendship is because my friends who tell me or who have told me who I am, my identity. This has been a process that has lasted throughout my entire life and is ongoing even at the age of 71. I don't know if other people have this aspect to their personality. I think I do have it. I think I need feedback still from my friends. If they don't tell me who I am, then who am I to believe? Well, my parents? No, no. My parents had vested interests. They flattered me or criticized me in order to manipulate me, of course. I did the same to my own children. Every parent does it, I think. I can't rely on my parents' feedback for my identity. Society? Well, no. Society, I can't rely on them either because it's controlled by the powerful who have their own vested interests. Powerful, maybe kings or queens, religious fanatics, political parties, advertisers. It doesn't matter because they all have vested interests and have manipulated me. So I don't rely on them to find out who I am. The only people I can really trust to tell me who I am are my friends. That is one reason why friendship, I think, is so important to me. My friends tell me who I am. Considering all of the above, it's perhaps not surprising that I have had unrealistic sometimes expectations of friendship. Maybe my expectations have been too high and I have been disappointed on occasion. This is a goat track that I have also found hard to change. Now we have Don the entertainer. Well, without a doubt, this is a most important barrier for me to forming friendships, although it can be a catalyst also. Of course, people like to be entertained. So if you can entertain, then you will gain many acquaintances. And I've done that. Definitely at school, I became an entertainer. But that is often as far as it goes. I find that when I stop being entertaining, many acquaintances will simply drop me. This is very irritating because being liked as an acquaintance is quite addictive, and it's not pleasant to be dropped so suddenly. The reality is that people are addicted to entertainment. I have sometimes done somebody a favor. Uh, I mean, a real favor, giving someone substantial help when they need it. And I don't mean a ride to the shops. Or maybe I have entertained someone for a long period of time, only to find that that person is too busy when I try to contact them at a later date. This happens to me all the time now with my teaching, time and time again. I think busyness, I don't mean business, I mean busyness, busy, is a disease of the 21st century. Yes, sometimes people are genuinely busy, but often it is just that they are distracted by something which is more entertaining than I am. I'm not able to sustain my usefulness or entertainment value in their eyes, so they drop me. Don the storyteller. Well, I think my loneliness may just be related to my personality. Yes, everybody is too busy either with survival or pursuing some recreational goal or some personal ambition like trying to make money or just distracting themselves from their own loneliness with busy activities. It is when I'm teaching that I really feel alive, and only though with some students. With some students, I really feel inspired. I only teach now the most motivated students. I enjoy the feeling of being useful to them. Not feeling useful makes me feel lonely and depressed. Being lonely is just the way I am. I think I will always be lonely. I will die lonely. There is no cure for loneliness, in my opinion. I think I've had a lucky life, an interesting life, with many, many good things in it. I have had and I still have an easy life compared to many other people. I was born lucky. Look at me now, sitting outside surrounded by beautiful plants and birds. It's paradise. I enjoy good health and I feel young mentally. Perhaps I write stories to try and connect with people to overcome my loneliness. I don't really know. There are many reasons. One reason, as I said, that I write is because it clarifies my thinking. Because when I don't write, my thoughts just become a complete mess. Most people don't seem to want to connect. When I speak, they seem disinterested. Most people seem not interested in my life. I've written over 150,000 words of stories about my life, and almost nobody has read even one word of them. I have them on a pen drive. Not even my family is interested. Maybe when I'm gone, they will be interested. Who knows? These are all true stories about the places I've lived in. I have so many stories. I am a storyteller. To write stories and to tell them is to be human. That is what I think. To finish on a cheerful note, I have a quotation about music. For me, curiosity is essential for friendship. I don't mean curiosity about people, but curiosity about the world. If someone is not curious about the world, like history, geography, culture, art, language, music, education, politics, then it's very unlikely I will form a close friendship with them. In addition, I don't want to be judged too quickly by superficial assessments. For me, the connection needs to be deep, often at both a conscious and subconscious level for a strong bond to form. I detest insincerity. I loathe the bogus and the fake. The media landscape at the moment is awash with nauseating redundancy, repetition, hyperbole, and cliche. It's an infestation worse than a pandemic. All this is a barrier to making friends. Everything is fake. All the tones of the newsreaders and the reporters are fake. Almost every single utterance or human interaction in the public space these days is contrived and poisoned by sycophants basically doing what they're told in order to sell the message, which is usually in order to make money for the media company who owns them. All of these things are barriers to friendship. A word about inconsistency. Well, this is without doubt a very powerful barrier to friendship for me. Without consistency, for me, the friendship will wither and die. If you change your behavior so that it becomes unpredictable for me, then the friendship will founder. You will become an unreliable partner for friendship for me. This has happened to me in several of my 80 friendships. Honesty is the best policy. Well, that's the old saying, but I'm not sure how true that really is. I certainly don't think I can be honest all the time with everybody, even my friends. I'm not even sure if I can be open with my friends either. I think the best I can do is to try to be as open as possible. That may sound pretty lame, I agree, but it's the best I can do. Women and friendship, well, many of my recent friendships have been with women. And I think this is because women are more diligent students. Besides, I find them much more interesting than men. Women seem to be more naturally curious about the world, whereas men are often dull and less interested in the world around them for some reason. However, having said that, women are mostly interested in friendships with their children. They are less interested in platonic friendships with other adult women or men, even their partners. It's all about the children. Friendship is a partnership. Well, finally, I think both parties must contribute. As soon as one party stops, the friendship begins to weaken. Even strong, long term friendships will weaken if one party reduces their contribution. You get out what you put in. It doesn't matter how much effort one party makes. If the other doesn't contribute, the relationship will weaken and eventually dissolve completely. That is my experience. I think subconscious connection is very important in relationships. Some people call this subconscious connection chemistry. It is hard to generalize, but some friendships go as follows for me. They follow a pattern. The friend or target, as I see them, has a conscious or subconscious quality that I admire and maybe want for myself. Many of my friends have quite different qualities from myself. They are patient, calm, intellectually powerful, even innocent. A friendship then develops because I want these qualities, which I detect in other people, at a conscious or subconscious level.